A reconnaissance plane with its cockpit grafted onto one wing and its engine shoved to the opposite side should have been a death sentence. But in 1938, Germany's strangest aircraft took flight and not only worked, but rewrote the rules of aerial observation. Why would a military bet on an aircraft that looked like a mistake? The answer reveals engineering genius, high-stakes competition, and a forgotten chapter of aviation that still shapes aircraft today. The Blohm Voss BV 141 stands apart from every aircraft of its era, not just for its mission, but for how its parts fit together, or rather how they do not. Where most planes mirror themselves down the center line, the BV 141 throws symmetry aside. The first thing that catches the eye is the cockpit gondola, a fully glazed pod bolted to the starboard wing, projecting like a transparent capsule. 3 crew members, the pilot, the observer, and the rear gunner, sat with an unbroken view, their compartment entirely separate from the main fuselage. To port, a single BMW 801 radial engine sits in its own nacelle, offset from the main body, spinning a 3-bladed propeller. This engine placement is not just unusual, it is a deliberate counterweight to the crew pod, and it gives the aircraft its unmistakable lopsided appearance. The main fuselage, rather than running down the center, hugs closer to the port side, connecting the engine to the central wing structure. From the port wing, a single tail boom stretches rearward, carrying the horizontal stabilizer and the vertical fin. There is no matching boom on the starboard side. The tail surfaces balance the engine and the gondola, creating a silhouette that can look almost unfinished from certain angles. The starboard wing, free of heavy structures, supports only its own weight and the outer edge of the cockpit pod. Every major component, the crew gondola, the engine, the tail boom, sits off-center, each assigned a specific location to balance the others. The result is a planform that seems to defy logic at first glance: cockpit on one side, engine on the other, tail jutting from a single wing. Yet every offset serves a purpose, each element positioned with intent. The BV-141's strange geometry is not a mistake, but a visible record of its designer's problem-solving, one that set the stage for the aerodynamic calculations that followed. Richard Vogt's approach to the BV-141's balancing act began not with exotic controls, but with a slide rule and a blueprint. The first priority was to align the aircraft's center of gravity with its center of lift, a difficult task when the cockpit, engine, and tail all sat off-center. Vogt's calculations mapped the precise mass of the glazed crew gondola on the starboard side and the heavy BMW 801 engine on the port side. The tail boom, attached only to the port wing, added another offset mass, and each component location was chosen to produce moments that canceled each other in flight. On paper, the force diagrams resembled a tug of war, engine weight and torque pulling left, crew and equipment pulling right, the tail boom stretching back to balance the equation. The engine's propeller torque, usually a nuisance in single-engine designs, became a tool. The left-turning force from the BMW 801's rotation matched the asymmetry of the layout, so the aircraft's natural tendency to yaw left was opposed by the starboard gondola's drag and mass. Rather than fighting torque, Vogt used it to contribute to stability, especially at the low speeds crucial for reconnaissance runs. At higher speeds, minor trim adjustments kept the nose straight, but the fundamental balance was built into the structure. The port wing, bearing both the engine and the tail boom, carried the greatest load. Engineers thickened the spar and reinforced the wing root, distributing stress across a wider area to prevent bending or torsion. Blueprint analysis shows extra stringers and bracing at the fuselage to boom joint, ensuring the cantilevered tail would not twist under aerodynamic force. The result is that the BV-141's odd geometry was not guesswork, but the product of careful, interconnected calculations. Every offset and every reinforcement turned the visual puzzle into a coherent, testable hypothesis, ready to prove itself in the air. On February 25, 1938, the BV-141 lifted off for its maiden flight, carrying the weight of both expectation and skepticism. The numbers that followed were unambiguous. Test flights recorded a top speed of 272 miles per hour at 16,000 feet, surpassing many contemporaries in its reconnaissance class. Maximum range reached 1,200 miles, and the service ceiling climbed to 29,500 feet. These figures were not theoretical. They appeared in test tables and engineering logs, verified across multiple airframes. In the cockpit, Hauptmann Hans Sonder logged his impressions with careful detail. Sonder described the aircraft as stable and surprisingly easy to handle, even with its radical shape. Spin recovery, often a weakness in unconventional designs, proved better than the FW-189, the Luftwaffe's standard reconnaissance platform. The three-man crew, pilot, observer, and rear gunner, operated from the glazed gondola, benefiting from steady flight and minimal vibration. Sander's flight notes make clear that the V-141 responded to controls like a conventional aircraft. No strange quirks, no need for constant trim adjustments. Performance data from the B series, equipped with the powerful BMW 801 engine, confirmed the design's potential. The aircraft reached operational altitudes quickly, with a rate of climb that matched or exceeded its rivals. Test logs record smooth transitions through all flight regimes, from low-speed photo runs to high-altitude cruise. In every measurable way, the BV-141 proved that its asymmetric layout was not just flyable, it was effective. On operational sorties along the Channel coast in 1941, Luftwaffe crews found themselves working with a level of visibility that simply had not existed before. The BV-141's offset gondola, wrapped in glass and free of engine or propeller obstruction, delivered a 270-degree field of view, nearly 50% greater than the FW-189 Uhu. Observers could scan the horizon, track enemy fighters, and photograph ground targets without shifting seats or fighting structural blind spots. Pilots reported that, compared to the Uhu's central nacelle, the BV-141's layout allowed them to detect threats sooner and stay on task longer, even under the pressure of enemy interception. Combat trial memos from Luftwaffe evaluation units recorded a consistent operational edge. Crews could spot anti-aircraft positions and moving columns earlier, then line up photo runs with no propeller arc cutting through the frame. The aircraft's 20 miles per hour speed advantage over competing designs meant it could cross defended airspace faster and break away from pursuit with less risk. In practice, this translated to more successful sorties, higher quality imagery, and fewer losses on missions where every second counted. The BV-141's panoramic vision and speed were not just technical achievements, they were tactical assets, giving Luftwaffe reconnaissance teams a real measurable advantage over the skies of occupied Europe. BMW 801 engines became a critical resource as the Luftwaffe ramped up production of the FW-190 fighter. With every available engine diverted to the front lines, reconnaissance projects like the BV-141 found themselves competing for the same hardware. Wartime allocation memos show engine deliveries redirected, often at the last moment, away from Blohm and Voss and toward established fighter assembly lines. The FW-189 Uhu, already rolling off production lines in quantity, offered a familiar, if less advanced solution and required no retraining of factory workers or changes to supply chains. Reichsluftfahrtministerium officials, wary of disruption and unconvinced by the merits of an asymmetric airframe, leaned heavily on the side of continuity. The BV-141's technical success could not overcome the realities of resource scarcity and institutional conservatism. In the end, the decision came down not to flight logs or test results, but to a simple equation of engines, assembly lines, and the priorities of a nation at war. Original blueprints and engineering drawings from Blohm and Voss survived the war. They were captured by Allied technical teams and stored in archives across Europe and the United States. These documents, stamped with Luftwaffe markings and annotated in Richard Vogt's hand, became a resource for post-war engineers trying to understand how such an unorthodox design achieved reliable flight. Allied technical evaluation reports, filed by the United States Army Air Forces and the Royal Air Force, analyzed the BV-141's structure, flight logs, and handling notes, confirming that its asymmetry was not only deliberate but effective. Flight test records from Hauptmann Hans Sonder, preserved in German aerospace archives, detail control responses and spin recovery, offering a rare window into real-world performance. The BV-141's radical approach did not fade into obscurity. In the decades that followed, its design influenced a new generation of engineers. NASA researchers studying observation aircraft referenced its sensor pod separation and panoramic crew visibility. Burt Rutan, the maverick American designer, drew direct inspiration from the BV-141 for his own asymmetric creation, the Boomerang. Rutan's aircraft, with its offset engines and tail, proved once again that symmetry is not a rule, but a choice. The BV-141's legacy endures in every design that dares to challenge convention, its lessons etched into the technical record and into the imagination of those who build the future of flight. Aviation keeps proving that convention is not the same as progress. As designers today break rules in pursuit of new solutions, drones, observation pods, even asymmetric aircraft, the BV-141 stands as a reminder that radical ideas, tested by flight, can redefine what's possible. Innovation still favors the bold.